Hello and welcome. Today we will be talking about a very interesting build that I like to call Three-Handed Storm Rogue. It consists of level 1 Storm Sorcerer, level 2 Tempest Cleric, level 3 Arcane Trickster, and level 6 Evocation Wizard. Now you can see generally what it looks like at the end here, but I'll just show you a nice preview of what it can do. Starting off, we're going to drop a bottle of water. Have my little friend run up, smack said bottle of water, wet every enemy. I will do a dash and increase my damage through one of my items, and I will maximize all the damage for a total of 205, 205, and 205, plus 120 for a total of 735 damage. Now, how did we get there? There seems to be a lot of weird stuff going on here, but we'll talk about all of it. The first thing you might notice was that I was using a Mage Hand. Now, the Mage Hand was actually very important to the damage here, and doing something that usually most people wouldn't expect it to do. First, at level 4, we'll talk about what it is expected to do. The things that most people would think it to do with the Mage Hand. As you'll see up here, I've put a little pile of items. I like to do this when I'm going into an area I know the encounters of. My main thing is I'd put up somewhere high a big stack of items for the Mage Hand, so he could choose one and throw it at a target. Because Mage Hand throwing is basically like an extra throw. And as you noticed, because I threw a spear, because I'm high up, it even did crushing damage from being high. That's 12 damage. That's basically an actionless pet. And I didn't even join the combat. And so besides that, you can do things like take a potion of speed. And then take some water, throw it down too. And now you'll see, I even hit him with crushing damage from the water. But besides that, he's wet now, and it's my main character's turn. Look at that, ice attack. Now, even though I missed him there, that miss for ice knife is just for the piercing damage. The cold explosion happens regardless if you hit, and he failed to save against it, which he only has a +1 to pass, so he has a 50-50 chance. And because of that, he took double damage. Again, not a crazy amount of damage, but early game, you need whatever you can get. Now this guy's almost dead just from a little bit of Mage Hand shenanigans. And there's a lot of options of things you can use. As you saw up here, there were grease bottles. I'll wait till after this. Alchemist fire, there's poisons of different kinds, acid vials, simple toxin, daggers, grease bottles, javelins, and my favorite, especially early game, drow poison. Let's say, this guy's already about to die, so I'm going to go toward the edge a little bit, see if I can get a more clear shot on the one I want. See this one right here? Throw the drow poison, and as you see right there, it said it missed, but notice she still received stricken with drow poison, and even succeeded against it, but still is asleep. It's because she'll get up on her turn, but right now she's going to stay asleep. Now, another thing you can do, since Mage Hand only has one action usually, is you can actually use your push to push certain items places too. Now, Alchemist Fire is a good example because when you push it off somewhere, it explodes. I didn't get to do it there, but you, I presume, can assume that when it hits the ground, it pops. There's a big fire area, and so you can use your bonus action to actually get items on the ground too. The only thing is that the goblins and such will notice that you're up here doing this. They will come up and they will attack you. If they kill you before you've used all your fun items, they will start throwing them. So please, be careful in what you bring up. Now, besides that, the item build is very simple early on. We went one Storm Sorcerer first so we don't have to respec later. This also gives us proficiency in con saves. This is important because concentration is very important for a caster, and you need to make con saves to keep concentration. This will come up later. I put my int down to 14 even though it's my casting stat because early game Dex is a little more important. It gives you AC, initiative, and then also allows you to attack with your bow and finesse weapons. I chose to use 2 daggers because it's hard to stay out of melee, and if you're feeling confident you can use the Spell Sparker, but I did this just in case I get dragged into melee. I have ways to attack. Otherwise I would usually be attacking with Hunting Shortbow, and then I have Bracers of Defense, Infernal Robe, Haste Helm, Moondrop Pendant, and Crusher's Ring. Crusher's Ring, Moondrop Pendant, and Haste Helm are all different ways to keep you moving and get you out of melee if you need it. Infernal Robe is a bit hard to get unless you know how to exploit Karlach, but otherwise it's the best robe you can get early game. And because I'm wearing a robe and bracers of defense and a cloth hat, I have 19 AC already. This is very good and very important early game because you are overwhelmed with a volume of goblins when you come into this area, and having a high AC really helps. There's a couple weapons that I could use here for fun effects, but I'll show you those later when we get to the next part. By level 6, we have gotten the most important part of the build, which is the weapons that the Mage Hand can use. Now, I said before we would start with the expected things for a Mage Hand, which happen to be throwing stuff. The unexpected things for a Mage Hand are a little bit more fun. Now, most people don't know that it can actually pick up weapons. The problem is, that's because it's not every weapon. It is likely unintended that it's supposed to, the way it does this, but if you look at most weapons with a Mage Hand and mouse over it, you'll see a hand. On the other hand, if you mouse over it and see gears like this, that means you can equip it. Now, this weapon is one of my favorites and the least risky use to equip Mage Hand. When I say risky, what I mean is anything the Mage Hand is wearing or has in its inventory will be destroyed if it dies. It will go straight into the void and you will not be able to get it back. Now, so the reason this is the least risky is because you can use Tyr's protection from the Sword of Justice, place it on your ally, and then just walk away and hide it somewhere. It doesn't ever have to follow you into combat, and as long as it lives, it'll continue to concentrate on Tyr's protection, which is until long rest. It's not a set number of turns. This means your main character is at 22 AC by level 6. Now you'll see that we have added 1 level of Cleric and 1 level of Wizard. The 1 level of Cleric is important because, as I mentioned, the Mage Hand is suddenly much more vulnerable. It always was going to die very fast, but now you want to keep it alive a little longer because you don't want to lose your weapons. There are actually a fair number of weapons it can equip, and because of that, there is a way to keep them a little safer. You cannot remove the weapon. Once you've equipped it, even if you do something like keep the Mage Hand out of battle for the rest of the game, you can never just take off this Sword of Justice. There is one way to take it off, and that is to throw it. But we cannot target it in our inventory because it's not in our inventory. So instead, you can actually pick up a different weapon. Let's pick up the useless Everburn Blade. By this point in the game, no one's using it. And so, because you picked up the Everburn Blade, you have the Sword of Justice in your inventory and can throw it. Now this can happen multiple times. You can actually pick up any number of weapons that it can equip, and then it will have them in the inventory. This means there's a lot of room for holding on to them, but you don't want to have too many at the same time because, again, if it dies, you will not get any of them back. So instead, you want to find ones that you can use at one at a time, and then either take off or find ways to keep the mage hand safe. The easiest way I have found is Sanctuary. There's a two-part reason for this. One, because Sanctuary protects it from most monsters in the game. Most monsters are going to come up and want to single target attack. They will only usually try to AoE your mage hand if it stays near you. So if you keep it somewhat distant, they won't be AoEing against it. It also is important because while it's sanctuaried, see, I have equipped it with a weapon, Phalar Aluve, which is famous because it is one of the strongest weapons in the game for this effect. You'll notice every weapon I've been equipping with the mage hand will show not proficient. That's because the mage hand has no proficiencies and will be very bad at attacking with any of these weapons. But any ability that is not an attack is very, very useful. Now, we know because of Phalar that the Shriek is extremely powerful and usable with many things. I covered this in another video, but it gives a minus 1d4 penalty to all mental saves for enemies within 20 feet of it for 5 turns, and also makes any attack you do against them do an extra 1 to 4 thunder damage. This comes up a lot and actually can apply multiple times. The Sing is okay, but the Shriek is why we're really here. And now, to show you one reason it's very good is, while Sanctuaried, I can actually start the Shriek, and it doesn't break the Sanctuary. Most things you do while Sanctuaried will get you broken out and give you Sanctuary broken. Because I don't have Sanctuary blocked, excuse me. Because I don't have blocked Sanctuary, I can stay flying around wherever I want and debuffing enemies with this. And again, this is just one of the many uses you can find. Then, let's see here. So if I wanted to keep Phalar safe, at this point I could pick up another weapon. I still have other ones, but I'll throw Phalar away. Now it's on the ground. Now anyone can pick it up. Now you'll notice that my Sanctuary got blocked as soon as I threw it, though. So you got to be careful. If in the best situation you had thrown the last weapon you had, it would take your Sanctuary off as it went away, and you'd be left with just the one item you're holding. Make sure the weapon you leave on it, if you're going to do this mid-combat, is one that you don't mind losing. Because if your Sanctuary is gone, you're not protected anymore. If you want to throw a lot of stuff in the combat, I suggest not equipping the Mage Hand in those combats. Otherwise, try to find fun uses with these things. With Staff of Arcane Blessings, you can buff your party. Another one that you can do, and then leave it outside of the combat for a no-risk bless. Another fun one is Hammerraft. It has this feature that when the wearer jumps, they deal thunder damage. But it also works with flying, as we might have learned from Hammerraft builds. And the Mage Hand flies, so look at this. The Mage Hand now flies and does thunder damage wherever it goes. Ones like Exterminator's Axe, Everburn Blade, these ones are good just really to get you your other ones back. There's not much you can do with them on their own. You can attack with them and you could maybe light something on fire, but it'd be better just to throw an Alchemist Fire. In the very rare cases, you can still find uses for them, but the main ones are really Phalar, Sword of Justice, and Staff of Arcane Blessings. These are the three with the biggest use, the least risk, and the most reward. Now, besides that, the items we had switched to on the main character, we had gotten the Ring of Protection now, added to our AC and saving throws. Got the Psychic Spark to give us a little output in magical damage. The Shade Spell Circlet is one of the only ways to raise spell DC this low, or this early in the game, rather. Got the Graceful Cloth, another good cloth armor that gives you plus to Dex, so it's the same AC bonus technically as Infernal Robe, but also gives you Cat's Grace, which gives you advantage on all skill checks that are Dex based. That's a big deal for stealth and sleight of hand. Now, I put the Abyss Beckoners on at this point because I put a shield on as well. The Bracers of Defense are only good if you're not wearing a shield. The Abyss Beckoners make Every summoned creature in an aura around you have resistance against all damage except Psychic. The Mage Hand already is immune to Psychic, so that doesn't matter. And it also says, at the start of the summoned creature's turn, it must succeed a Wisdom save or be driven mad. Now, Mage Hand is immune to madness, so these actually just say, resist all damage on a Mage Hand. That will help it keep alive early game before you have the output of damage to kill everything before they can attack your Mage Hand. That will also go hand in hand with Absolute's Warboard. It gives you a use of heroism, which is a great way early game to use your concentration and, more specifically, give the Mage Hand temporary hit points. This does it each turn, and because you have the mixture of the glove aura and the temporary hit points, it actually means that they need to do 16 damage to actually kill the Mage Hand. And that has to be happening all in one turn. So the Mage Hand can actually be pretty durable if you need to keep it alive between those sanctuaried turns. Other ways you can do it are by obscuring it with Fog Cloud or Darkness, which we'll be seeing very soon. The last couple items were Herald, a great crossbow that we'll get to later, but it's mostly just a nice thing to shoot with when you aren't casting spells, you're out of spell slots. And we have Disintegrating Nightwalkers. Can't slip, can't be entangled or enwebbed, or ensnared. They're just great boots. They give you use of Misty Step. Awesome for the early game. But now let's see what happens once we've moved on a little bit and we actually become a bit more of a caster. Now, up until now, we've had 3 levels of Arcane Trickster. Those are only 1/3 caster levels. The other 3 levels we had were full caster levels, and now we've had 2 more full caster levels. That's a total of 5 full caster and 3 third caster, for a total of 6 caster levels in entirety. And now you'll see I have level 3 slots, level 2 slots, and level 1 slots, all abundantly. I can even refresh a little bit in between combats. But the more important thing is I have spells like Lightning Bolt now, and I have spells like Darkness now. Darkness I got from leveling up, but Lightning Bolt I had to take by getting a scroll. Because I'm a wizard, I can scribe scrolls, and I chose Lightning Bolt as my main source of damage. This is a lightning build. I wanted to be a lightning guy. I don't think I mentioned it in the last part, but we are using the Spell Sparkler, which means anytime you deal damage with a spell, you gain lightning charges. It's just a great early game staff. There isn't a lot of other options, and especially because we're wearing the Psychic Spark and using Magic Missile to supplement, the Spell Sparkler is great. You can go full into Magic Missile in this time in Act 2 with Callous Glow Ring, but I wanted to be, like I said, focused on Lightning Bolt, and so instead I kept with the Spell Sparkler. Now, I also switched the shield at this point to the Sentinel Shield for +3 to Initiative and advantage on Perception. Now, the advantage is irrelevant. It's really for the +3 to Initiative. As is the helmet, +1 to Initiative and +1 to Spell Save DC, unconditionally. We finally got a cape, so AC +1, saving throw +1. This is to enhance our already high AC. And we replaced also the boots we were wearing. These are, each time you dash, the wearer gains Arcane Charge. Now, Arcane Charge is listed a little wrong. It says, while threatened, affected entity has a +1 bonus to damage with spells. What it actually means is it has a plus proficiency bonus to damage with spells. Those won't be important now, but I'll show you in our next part why they are. And now, the last item is Ring of Twilight. This one is great because it gives +1 to armor class while obscured, but actually what it does, if you notice, the power is called Treader by Twilight. And if you look here, you can see Treading Twilight comes up twice. That's because this ring gives +1 to AC always, but another +1 to AC while obscured. Because of this, that's how I'm able to hit 23 AC, and if you saw what I was doing before, I can do with the Mage Hand, I can go up even higher, and I can reach 25 AC. I'll do it real quick, just to show. And again, this would be a permanent buff, as long as you just want to keep this Mage Hand hidden somewhere. If Mage Hand said, until this creature dies, you have +2 AC, hide it somewhere, or just +2 AC permanently, people would think a lot more favorably of Mage Hand. plus 2 AC is a lot, and having 25 AC at level 8 is great. Now the only thing we don't have at this point is a feat. Because the levels were taken in such a way, we haven't taken a feat yet. Luckily, because of the way the build is, the fact that you kind of have an extra hand to use, you don't actually need the feat early on. And the feat we're going to take once we get to the area where we have the items to use it is Dual Wielder. The only feat we'll be taking the entire build. Generally, I don't like 1 feat builds. I like to be in the 2 feat range minimum, but this one worked perfectly just for the 1 feat. Now you might notice, not only am I housing, but I've got Shovel with me. I don't know who knows Shovel, but Shovel is a familiar. You can use any familiar from the Find Familiar spell. We also have that taken into consideration. But I like Shovel. Shovel is good because Shovel can become invisible. Very useful function, and Shovel has a pretty good bonus to its initiative. As you see, it has a 17 dex, and that's a +3 to initiative. It means often it'll go near the start of the round, where your Mage Hand often goes near the end of a round. In terms of things that have changed, we have actually went back to Bracers of Defense because we took the shield off. I put Morning Frost on in the meantime because now that we have, at this level 4 spell slots, we can get Ice Storm. Now, this one also, we can't learn it naturally because we haven't gotten the levels, but you can learn it by scroll. And if you go to Sorcerer's Sundries, you can buy the scroll there. So, besides the Bracers of Defense, we've also upgraded to the Cloak of Displacement. This meant that our AC actually went down by 1, but it also meant that any enemies attacking us now have disadvantage. This lasts until we take damage, which it refreshes on every turn anyway, but you don't take damage often. So this basically just says enemies have disadvantage forever. And that's a pretty good sentence to read. Besides that, I went to the Bow of Awareness just for the +1 initiative because at this point you're not really range attacking with Herald. But besides that, it's all very, very common stuff. Now, one other spell that you could get going early here is Greater Invisibility. This leads to a lot of shenanigans. You can use it on both yourself or your Mage Hand. And either way, it means that when you're wearing the Graceful Cloth and you have a bonus to stealth of 12, and so you have +12 and an advantage, it's going to be a lot of turns until they see you through Greater Invisibility. So you can also use Ice Storm as a big AoE to throw down ice, but also to set up whatever you need for your lightning, because the ice not only will turn to water in a couple turns, but it makes people slip and makes them fall around. And while you have it down, you can do things like put Sanctuary on your Mage Hand, have it fly into the ice, and because it's flying, it can't slip. Now, real quick, because Mage Hand and Familiar here can both be invisible, I want to show something important. Now, you can have them do things without breaking through the Sanctuary. We saw that with the Phalar already. Another thing that's very important is that you can have it, while sanctuaried, drag objects. It doesn't seem super great, except for the fact that it's not breaking the Sanctuary, so you can move things really close to guys, such as water bottles. And that's really important for a build that's focused around lightning. So let's go real quick to Halcyon. Water bottle. Now the thing is though, you have to be careful because invisibility will get broken for moving an object, as you see right there. But remember, Sanctuary will not. So don't use the invis to move objects. Use it to get you in place. Then have your caster use Sanctuary so that things like the Mage Hand can move the water bottle And in the times where it's not wearing a weapon, it can actually just attack it with a 100% chance and burst it to wet enemies. That will break the Sanctuary though, so if I didn't want to break the Sanctuary, what if I, say, had moved it with the Mage Hand, but then my invisible guy ran up and just punched it himself? Now you see, I have wet the enemies, but my Mage Hand is still safe. If he had Phalar, he could start shrieking. Oh look, it's right here. So he'd be ready, and then all I'd have to do is a max lightning bolt. Now one more thing I can show, since I will be going first this round, since I have a 10 to my initiative, is that we changed the Halcyon because Halcyon has Call Lightning, Thunder Wave, Healing Word, Ray of Frost, oh no, sorry, not Ray of Frost, and Misty Step. These 4. He also has Cave Bear, but that only is if you have Druid levels for the Wild Shape charge. Otherwise, he has 4 spells that he has access to without learning them. Yes, you still have to spend spell slots for them, but that doesn't matter. They're still things you didn't have to learn. It's also wisdom based, so that's also bad, but it's something you didn't have to learn. It's extra and something you might need to use because Call Lightning, for example, is concentration. You can cast it for 10 turns with using only 1 spell slot. Because of that, it becomes pretty useful. And if you're only on your last level 3 spell slot, you might want to use it. Now, because we are a Storm Sorcerer, we can fly around. Now, I'm going to fly over here to demonstrate something. If I Lightning Bolt, usually I'd have to worry about hitting Shovel or my Mage Hand. But I don't because I'm Evocation Wizard. Boom. Now, I only have to worry about hitting the guy who's wet. My little familiars and such are immune to most of my nukes. They are not immune to Call Lightning, so be very careful when you use Call Lightning. Now, I think it's time to go to the final build and to show finally what it can do. It might seem insignificant, but also the Ice Storm, when it's put down, it puts down the AoE of ice on the ground. You or your familiar can slip on this if you use Shovel, but if you use a Raven, it's flying, so it's actually immune to slipping on the ice. Same with the Mage Hand. The Mage Hand is immune while standing in the middle of the ice. So first let's look at the gear here. The final gear build. We haven't changed the rings. We haven't changed the cloak since we got Cloak of Displacement, and we have the same bracers and boots. First we'll talk about the armor. Helldusk armor is here because while it is considered a legendary heavy armor, because it has are considered proficient with it, it has a weird thing about it where it actually isn't really considered armor. It is for things like mage armor, but if you notice, Bracers of Defense says, as long as you're not wearing armor or holding a shield for Become the Bulwark, but I have both Become the Bulwark and Helldusk armor on right here. That's how I'm hitting an AC of 27 right now. So Helldusk armor is really good for the build. But if you don't want to use it, if you have something else in mind, you could wear Robe of the Weave, also great, and if we had mage armor on right now, this would still be a 23 AC. So nothing to sniff at. But I'm going to leave it on Helldusk for now. I'll show you a quick image of what it looks like, the horrible horror of this gear. That's why we're going to wear this camp gear instead. Now the other one that was so ugly, Mask of Soul Perception. +2 to attack rolls, initiative rolls, and perception checks. As ugly as it is, this is an amazing helmet. +2 to initiative is really good. And if you'll notice, I actually went down in initiative because I changed my dex to 14 and my int to 16. This made my DCs 1 higher and my initiative 1 lower. I felt it was worth it because I'm no longer doing dex to AC because this armor doesn't take dex. But you don't have to switch it. If you were using the build up till now, you do not have to respec, you do not have to change your stats. Leave it at 16 and 14 and you'll be fine. Beyond that, we changed the amulet to Amulet of the Devout. One of the best amulets in the game. +2 the bonus to spell save DC, and you gain an additional use of Channel Divinity, which in this build is very important. We'll see why the Tempest Cleric Channel Divinity is so good in a moment. Part of it is also why we're wearing the Hellfire Engine Crossbow. Lightning Arrow is a very powerful ability and can be maximized by the Tempest Cleric ability. Besides that, we're wearing Markoheshkir, best quarterstaff in the game, and with the Kreska's Favor, we are using it to imbue lightning. Kreska's crackling whatever. Now, the last weapon is Rhapsody. This one is an unassuming weapon, but the first power, Scarlet Remittance, is incredibly powerful. Gain a +1 bonus to attack rolls, damage, and spell save DC for every foe you slay. Now, first of all, it's doubly good because you can do things like slay an ally. Huh, I didn't think that would make him mad. But you'll notice I gained Scarlet Remittance there for that. Here, I'll load real quick so we can see what it looks like in action. But so yes, Rhapsody will add +3 to our damage, and that damage, once it's stacked, will add on everything we do. Not just the initial cast, but anything that adds on that initial cast as well. For example, the 1d4 thunder damage from the Phalar Shriek will be enhanced by Scarlet Remittance. And what's more important is this damage bonus will come before things like Vulnerable, and so it'll be doubled. Now real quickly, I have a little setup here where I'll have Shovel do an attack, hit this water bottle that I have placed, become wet as well as these guys, and he can end. And now you'll notice I'm crackling with Kreska's Lightning. That's from the Kreska's Favor. Now I can do a normal lightning bolt. It's going to be a level 3 lightning bolt. Now Destructive Wrath, this is the Tempest Cleric Channel Divinity. We're not going to use it, but if you look at when you roll thunder or lightning damage, you can maximize the damage instead. We'll use it in a moment, but for now, this is what damage looks like without maximizing it. Still pretty good. Now I am a little worried for Shovel because I didn't quite finish off Fist Clover. But we'll see. Will she attack Shovel? Now if you look here, the Mage Hand I've already set up with Sanctuary and Phalar Shrieking. And notice, they ignore it too. These guys have a rush attack. It can hit the Mage Hand through Sanctuary and it will kill it. But still they ignore it. See, there's the rush attack. That could do it. But it's not. And it comes down to AI priorities. Once the Mage Hand has the Sanctuary on, they don't care about the Mage Hand anymore. And so I can do things like move the Mage Hand right here to debuff all of them. Wait, oh, come on, can I get all of them? Okay, we'll get the front 3, it's okay. And see, even her, even though she's right next to a familiar, out in the open, she ignored it. And this is basically where you saw the start of the encounter. Now I can just drop a water bottle, and instead of me using an action for it, I can use my familiar. It has an action, and as you see, it's around the same initiative as me. Luckily so. Now with myself, since these guys are all wet, I can now do Chain Lightning, Destructive Wrath, boom, boom, boom. And there you go. Very simple. Now real quick, there's one more thing I want to show in here. I didn't quite go over how the damage gets so high, and I didn't hit the peak of it there. But here I will show you the peak. It comes down to a boot I mentioned earlier, the Boots of Arcane Bolstering. So not only are Boots of Arcane Bolstering strong because they add proficiency to damage on all of your damage, But as you'll see right here, they actually add it more than once, thanks to vulnerability. Now when I have this guy run up and slap this water bottle this time, I've already used the dash, and I already have the arcane charge. That means when I do this and maximize it, suddenly, again, I'm doing 184 damage per attack. And if you look, you'll see it has the +4 from proficiency for crackling with Kreska's lightning, +4 more proficiency for arcane charge, +3 for scarlet remittance, and +1 for lightning charge. That's +12 damage onto all lightning damage before vulnerability. And so that's actually +24 damage on every target for when you use a lightning move. And now look, Phalar also adds scarlet remittance and proficiency because of arcane charge. And this adds the proficiency from crackling with Kreska's favor. So 1, 2, there's 2 instances of proficiency right there, plus the +3 for remittance. This one is used again here because it's vulnerable, so it's 3 proficiencies and this +3, and then 2 more proficiencies and another +3. So for each target, that's proficiency added 4 times before it's doubled. So it's actually 8 instances of proficiency damage. The only time it's not doubled is here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Sorry, 7 of proficiency. That's 7 times 4 for a total of 28. Then if you consider the original Scarlet Remittance is doubled, you get that twice there and one more time for 3 of the +3, total of 37. And then when you add the 2 lightning charges doubled, that's 4 more for a total of 41. Added on to anyone you shoot that has the Phalar Shriek while you have the arcane charges and the crackling with Kreska's lightning. One thing I wanted to show beyond that was that also, because you're evocation and because you're using spells like this, not only are your own guys safe, but you can shoot out of darkness with no penalties. And yeah, you can basically do the same thing with Greater Invis, so find the way you can have fun with this and do your best. I hope you enjoyed it.